Date.
We've got Representative Nick Baines. He's a member, of course, of the Mississippi House of Representatives. He represents District 2. That's up there in Alcorn. Did I say that right? Alcorn?
Alcorn.
Alcorn, okay. I want to make sure I pronounce it right. Alcorn County.
It happens a lot.
And he's the chair of the House Judicial B Committee, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Appreciate you coming on, as always, Representative Bain. So I guess the big legislation coming out of the committee and passed on the House floor is the measure that addresses the ballot initiative situation in the state of Mississippi. And, of course, the background there is we learned the Supreme Court didn't take too kindly to the way that was structured and striking down Initiative 65 because of the ballot initiative mechanism.
Yeah,
so.
That's right. And we handled that. I handled that on the floor yesterday. It came out, passed pretty much, I want to say on party lines, Republican, Democrat, Republicans for it for the most part. And two major differences between it and what we had. What we had allowed the citizens to have an initiative process that would amend the Constitution.
Yeah.
This one only allows for a statutory amendment, which is just Mississippi Code, regular law, and it allowed for the legislature, as you know, you had 65, you had 65A. Under the old way, the legislature could propose an alternative.
Yep.
In this situation, they can't do that. So whatever the initiative is brought forth by the citizens, that's what would be on the ballot. Now, the legislature cannot touch that for a period of 2 years unless there are some public health issues, some financial insecurities, or something that comes up.
Yep.
So there are some of that stuff that's built in. But for the most part, it allows your citizens the same process. It's just statutory law instead of the Constitution.
Yeah, and as we look across the country, I think we have some states that have no citizen initiated ballot measure process. We have some that have one where they could amend or create statute, I guess.
Right.
So some you could, right? You could actually create new law.
And you could repeal a law through it as well. So, if there's a law in Mississippi that you don't like, you could repeal it.
Okay.
And through this process. So it's one of the things we always heard about, and I think you've talked about it, or some shows we've talked about before, about California always has all these initiatives. It seems like they've got 30 initiatives. Mm-hmm. We limited it to five initiatives on one ballot. So you're not going to have all of these initiatives like California, because we want to give people the right to have a voice and to have an initiative process, but we don't want to completely just load up the ballot with a whole bunch of stuff.
And as I recall, a particular measure must be limited to one subject matter.
That's correct.
Right.
Yes, that's right.
As well.
Limited to one subject matter. If that measure were to, let's say it were to fail, like we had one a couple years ago with MAEP on it, and it failed, it would be, I think it's limited. It could not be brought back on the ballot for 2 years.
I think that's right. Yeah, and there's some other constraints about anything that might call for a significant amount of spending.
There's some fiscal notes, is what we call them, but some fiscal responsibilities to the people who are proposing the initiative that they have, and making sure that the state can afford what they're proposing.
Right.
Which I think is good policy.
Yeah. In fact, the way I interpreted Representative Bain was that if a measure is brought to the ballot that does cause a substantial increase in cost, you got to have an offsetting revenue generating mechanism.
You got to show where it's coming from. That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that just makes good fiscal sense.
To your listeners, that's how it is when we propose an appropriation bill in the House or the Senate. We have that same rule that if we're going to raise something, we got to show where we're taking it from.
Sure. They don't do that at the federal level.
No,
that's
not
for
at
sure.
all. No, not at all.
Not bound by the requirement to balance the budget.
Right.
It's a fundamental problem there. All right, let's talk about the signature gathering process. What does that look like?
Same thing. You get whatever signatures are required. It's from the same congressional districts. Is that I think it's 12% of the last election, gubernatorial election. I think that's right.
Yeah, it is.
So yes, so you gather those from the same congressional districts. We may lose one, we may gain one, whatever the case may be. At the time, it's whatever congressional districts at the time of the initiative. Now, I want to be perfectly clear. It's got to be from those congressional districts. Let's say, Gerard, let's just say you got 25,000 is what you need from each district. Make the numbers easy.
Yep.
And you get 27,000 from the first district, and you get 23,000 from the third district. Well, you can't take the 2,000 extra you got from the first district and add that to the third district. They all have to meet that threshold.
Okay. So you got to be careful in the signature gathering. And the idea there is to make sure you've got a broad buy-in, if you will.
You got a good cross-section of the whole state.
Yeah, makes total sense. And so you go through the process. Your Secretary of State has to sign off on everything, and you've got the signatures in place to meet those requirements, and you're good to go. These happen on statewide elections, right?
Yes, statewide elections. Let's, for example, if you had the Secretary of State, I think, has 90 days to get it on a November ballot. If he doesn't, then it would go over to the next ballot. So if Michael Watson was able to, if we had an initiative this year and was able to get it on there by August, I guess it would be voted on in November, and then if not, it would roll over to next year's statewide election. Now, I do want to be clear. This is a resolution that we've passed. It's a resolution that both House and Senate will have to pass, amending the Constitution to allow this initiative process to happen.
Yep.
This actual bill will have to be on the ballot in November, so people will have to vote on this initiative process.
All right, so they're to pass a measure on the ballot. There's a distinction, is there not, between just normal measures and those which involve money, revenue.
That's right. And I think that's just a higher percentage of the vote.
60%, I believe, on the revenue-oriented measures and just simple majority, but a minimum of 40%.
40% of those voting.
I want to make sure I had that right. All right, so that's where we stand now. It's gone over to the Senate?
It's gone to the Senate. I believe it was held on a motion. That's a procedural move. It was held on a motion to reconsider. Chairman, it's in Constitution. Chairman Fred Shanks will move to table that amendment, or that will move to table that motion today, and it will then be released to go to the Senate, and then they'll start the process over there.
Okay. What do you think?
I think it. The debate went pretty much what I thought it would. Chairman Shanks believes that it will go to conference. And that there will be some stuff added or taken away, whatever the case may be. One of the amendments yesterday was allowing some type of appeal process. We alluded to the fact that the legislature could amend this in 2 years if they found certain factors. There was an amendment that allowed for the legislature's decision to be appealed. Those little minutia and some of that stuff may be ironed out in conference, and that's typically how conferences work. Yeah. So, but for the most part, I think you're going to see the bill like it is. Okay.
Interesting. All right. Well, what else you got going on? Let's first in your committee.
Well, tomorrow is deadline for floor action. So all the House bills that are not passed by tomorrow will be dead. Jud B, we passed out a number of things this year. I was on earlier with you talking about the fentanyl issues, the fentanyl crisis, and we had a 3-part plan package that we wanted to see get pushed out, and it did pass. That was where we created a drug-induced homicide statute along with an education curriculum and allowing some measure of regulation on the creation of or the possession of pill presses. That has passed out. I'm proud of that. I hope that we can continue that down and continue the discussion about the dangers of fentanyl and the overdoses. I saw a stat that now between the ages of 18 and 45, it's the number one killer in America. So it's certainly something that I want to see us continue to do. We're also looking at some other criminal justice stuff, trying to get people back to work and alleviate some of the recidivism among some of our inmates. So Jud B has been productive, but the main thing is I do think that we've passed some stuff that have helped Mississippians.
Okay. One thing I did want to go back to make sure I understood this. This is a concurrent resolution talking about the ballot initiative.
That's right.
Matter, the measure. So this has got to go to the ballot as I understand
That's right.
it.
That's
right?
right. Mm-hmm.
So the people have to approve this. It does not require a signature by the governor because it's a resolution.
That's right. The people will have to approve that, and I believe they'll vote on it this next election.
Yeah, because it's statewide.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, midterms are statewide. Can you hang around for the next
absolutely.
segment? I know you got some other bills you want to talk about as well, and some of the stuff that's going through and what's happening there. We'll be right back. We've got Representative Nick Bain with us. He serves in the Mississippi House of Representatives. We're back here in the studios at SuperTalk, Mississippi. We've got Representative Nick Bain joining us on middays. So we were just talking about, just want to make sure that our audience understands this, Representative Bain, that this concurrent resolution,
right,
and it is such because it will amend the Constitution, correct?
Right, that's correct.
As opposed to a standard bill, a standard measure, passes both houses, both chambers, goes to the governor for signature, that enacts it into law. In this case, it's a resolution, does not require the governor's signature. And in effect, the people's approving of it at the ballot box, it kind of takes the place of the governor's signature.
That's correct. And this has been done before, and your listeners may remember when I was not in the legislature at the time, but I remember we had to ratify it when I got there. There was a vote, I think, in the 2011 election that allowed for a constitutional amendment to hunting rights or hunter, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
That was the same process. There was a resolution that got started, and it went through both houses, got the votes, and then it went on the ballot, and people voted for it. Same process.
So the main, and you and I talked about this off the air, so the main concern I've heard about this is that this would not allow the citizens, through a ballot measure, to amend the Constitution. And I think most folks are okay with that, with the exception being that that would be the only avenue, the only path to implement term limits. And so there's some discussion about that.
It would be, in theory, it's the only path. The legislature could do it.
They could put a measure on the ballot.
But practically speaking and pragmatically, yes, right, yeah, it's the citizens would not have an initiative process to put term limits on a ballot.
Okay. But they could certainly go discuss that matter with their reps.
That's right.
And they could encourage them if they feel strongly enough. And I think if enough people did that, then my guess is the legislature would act, and they'd probably put a measure on the ballot.
We always try to do the people's will.
So at this point, this goes through. The ability to amend the Constitution just through citizen-initiated ballot measure would no longer exist. Is that fair to say?
It would not.
It doesn't exist now.
That's what I'm about to say. It doesn't exist now. The people, as we sit here, Gerard, have absolutely no ability to have any type of initiative.
Yeah, that's nothing. They're right. Good point.
So we have nothing, or the people have nothing. This will allow them to have a process.
Okay. All right. And I think I'm certainly in agreement that it makes more sense for the citizens to have this ability to affect statute.
I agree.
As opposed to start digging into the Constitution. And I think a lot of people found out after Initiative 65, you mean this was going to be incorporated into the Constitution? I concerns
agree.
About that.
I agree. And I said that yesterday on the floor. We don't need to be held hostage to the political whims of one generation or one trendy thing. So, if you do have a trendy thing and it becomes part of statute, it's a lot easier to go back than when you put it in the Constitution.
Yeah, because then you got to go back to the ballot box to make any changes to it. You're stuck with it until you can get that done. So, all right. What else is going on in the House? You guys are moving pretty rapidly.
We are. Like I said, deadline's coming up. The biggest topics right now that we're taking up is I know you've discussed an income tax elimination. Both houses seem to have a plan to eliminate the income tax. Both of those are a little bit different. I believe you save money, and I obviously believe the House plan is better. I understand that we have ability to do this by the revenue, some of the revenues that we have in our state coffers that help us to be in a position that we are. Some of the conservative things that we've done over the last 10 to 12 years that have allowed that to occur. So I am proud that the governor and both houses are starting to look at cutting this income tax. I live next to Tennessee, and they don't have an income tax, and certainly I have people that come into Corinth that I talk with that that they're moving to Tennessee, or they moved to Tennessee because of that.
Yeah.
So I do think it's something that can help the state of Mississippi grow. And like I said, I'm a fan of the state plan. I believe it. I mean, of the House plan. I think it puts more money in people's pockets and allows us to hopefully grow at a better rate.
Yeah, I think that the fundamental question is a philosophical one: is how should we raise revenue? So I think most clear-thinking people would agree we need a state government. We need a state government to provide the minimum services. Certainly, those of us in the conservative camp would say that. How best to fund those activities and those functions, and most in the more conservative libertarian world believe that taxing consumption is more appropriate than taxing income. The taxing income is, in fact, is kind of a disincentive.
Or taxing, income, or the franchise tax, or any of that type of stuff. The consumption, I think, has a wider swath of people that can contribute to it. It's not as discriminatory, I think, and it's just a fairer tax. I think Economics, Grover Norquist, other people have talked about how much fairer it is to approach at a taxation system based on that sales tax than I'm looking for a word that they call it, but income or franchise tax, those type of set taxes like that.
And the franchise tax, thankfully, we got rid of that. It may have been the dumbest tax ever.
I remember a couple years ago, it was one of the biggest tax cuts at that time that we did. But yes, that's right.
Yeah, and Norquist actually published an article, I think just yesterday, suggesting that we're on the road to becoming the country's 10th no-income tax state. Of course, he's been on the program he's a huge proponent of elimination of income taxes.
And he came to the same hearing you did back in the summer and testified and gave us ideas and really, as a leader in this area of the world or on this issue, so to speak. So his credibility is unscathed in that regard.
I think that's right. So anyhow, we'll see what happens. I think this is destined for conference for sure.
Sure.
Now that we got two bills,
and that's a good thing. You're talking about it.
Yeah.
It's just getting the best bill and the best product out there.
Yeah, I think that's right. And then, I've shared with you offline, I've asked the House, which had a fiscal note prepared on the House bill from the LBO, I'd sure would like to see that extended out for more than just 2 years and kind of see the impact on that and maybe see some differential analysis on that as well. But it's we need to do something bold. I do agree with that, but I don't want to do something that would really put our state finances at risk to the point that we've got to go back to the well and make some rather abrupt adjustments that wouldn't go over very well.
And I think the state leadership has learned from other states like Kansas that had to do that.
Yeah.
They had a big cut, and then they had to go back and redo some stuff. So I think the leadership has taken a very deliberate and measured approach to this. And I think they will continue to do so. Trey, Lamar, and the Speaker and Jason White have all worked diligently on this, and getting the Senate to the table has been half the battle, so to speak. But now that they have, I'm confident that we can get a product out there.
Yeah, I hope so. Now, the governor said yesterday, I think he went to social media to suggest that he's really bristling his feathers there because we had a big income surplus, big revenue surplus, and I get that. The question is that sustainable? Is that one time? Is it an anomaly? And he says it's time for us to eliminate the income tax. Have you seen a plan? I'm asking a serious question. Come from the governor's office on what the governor would like to see.
No, I have not. I have not seen a plan, and I want to be perfectly clear. All of this discussion and the plan started in the House and with the Speaker's office. Yeah. I have not seen a plan from the governor. I have not heard the governor. I've heard him talk about doing this and kind of with just some rhetoric about doing it, but I have not seen anything substantive come from his office.
Yeah.
I encourage him to do so. We in the legislature are awaiting that and look forward to working with him on that. But like you said, we have not seen a plan.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. This is a math exercise.
That's
what it is. It's a fairly complex, involved, dynamic math exercise. But let's look at the various models and figure out what makes most sense and what's like the most likely scenario in reality, and make some decisions on that basis. But I would just suggest to have a contingency plan. Let's don't end up like Kansas.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, and I certainly we will pass those remarks along. And I want to reassure your listeners that we're going to do everything we can to do this smartly and protect the state coffers.
Yeah, appreciate that. Representative Nick Bain has been our guest here on Middays. We'll take a break right here. Funky Town bumping us out of this segment. We'll be right back.